Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have two amazing guests to introduce to you now. Matt Gallant and Wade T. Lightheart, founders of BIOptimizers, are here to help you identify the factors that will bring you lasting results by helping you create a nutritional strategy that works for you. They are the authors of the fantastic, The Ultimate Nutrition Bible. Easily create the perfect diet that fits your lifestyle, goals, and genetics. This all-in-one and very comprehensive guide to the current diet and nutritional landscape will help you establish a personalized, sustainable dietary strategy based on your goals, genetics, and unique needs. Matt Gallant is a kinesiologist with a degree in the science of physical activity and is the CEO and co-founder of BIOptimizers. He's been a strength and conditioning coach for multiple pro athletes, a self-defense instructor, and has over 18 years experience formulating supplements. He's been successfully following a mostly ketogenic diet for over 30 years. Wade T. Lightheart is a certified sports nutritionist advisor and president and director of education and co-founder of BIOptimizers. As a plant-based and drug-free athlete for more than 2 decades, Wade is a 3-time natural bodybuilding champion who competed in both the IFBB Mr. Universe and then the INBA Natural Olympia by the age of 31. Wow. Matt and Wade, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
We're excited to be here.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Such an honor to host you. This book is absolutely amazing. And so my first question to you guys, I've been eating a carnivore diet for 4.5 years. Can you tell me why I'm so super smart and everybody else is absolutely wrong about everything?
Well, first of all, we can help you take your already successful diet to another level. So that really, we wanted to write the most comprehensive, unbiased nutrition book ever. I've been, again, a keto guy since I'm 16, really 15. I came home one day, my uncle told me I was fat. So I decided I was going to lose weight, got on the Atkins diet, went from 190 to 147 in 6 months, and then discovered the anabolic diet by Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale. Started training literally 12 times a week, went from 147 to 235. And then Wade's been on a plant-based diet for 20 plus years. So we argued for a long time in terms of what was the ultimate diet strategy. And being both personal trainers and working with hundreds of people one-on-one, we saw that not everybody did well in the keto diet. Not everybody did well in a plant-based diet. And we eventually found universal nutritional optimizers and put the whole book together. So it's been a long journey.
That's amazing. And for you, Wade, I mean, look at all the things you were able to accomplish on a plant-based diet. Like if I was to read some of the things that you've been able to accomplish, like bodybuilding on a plant-based diet, that to me would be very difficult. That's really amazing that you were able to absolutely thrive on what most people would consider like the opposite type of a diet.
You know, there's something I recognized a long time ago when I went into a plant-based diet. I kind of became an accidental vegetarian. That wasn't how I grew up or how I was born or inside of the bodybuilding community. But I experimented with it after reading a book called The Holy Science. And I was met with an incredible amount of resistance from virtually everybody I know around bodybuilding and plant-based diets. They said, that's not possible. You can't do it. Forget about it. But none of them had actually tried it. And what I was witnessing was there's an aspect of all humanity to kind of filter through their own experience and then find supporting evidence to back up these biases. And I was clear that there were some biases here being projected onto me. So I went on it as an experiment. Can I do this legitimately? I didn't know. And there was a lot of discoveries on the way. There was some validation in what people said, but there was also strategies that I could use to overcome what was the perceived limitations of a plant-based diet. That took me about 4 years to figure that out from a high performance side. It wasn't an easy journey because there was no one actually doing it. And then from there, we began to advocate how a person could be successful on it. But I'm very different than a lot of what I would call vigilante vegans. And that is, I'm not here to tell everybody they got to do the diet my way. What I'm sharing with you, if you are a plant-based person or you are more prone or more likely genetically to be successful on it, here's the way that you can offset the liabilities within that diet and to thrive on it. And it's the same with the other dietary strategies that we have in the book. Every diet has advantages and every diet has disadvantages, and every person has a unique genetics And then there's a goal that they may be looking to achieve. When you factor all of those things, you can develop the perfect diet for you without relying on secondary anecdotal evidence and projections from other people that don't know the unique needs of your body and where you are in life.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. I'll sometimes tell people who try to kind of box me into what I do. I'll tell them it's no different than me working at the Ford dealership. I'm not the one shouting at everybody driving Chevys, telling them they're stupid. I'm just here working at the Ford store. I like a Ford, sure, it's great, and I can explain how they work really well. I probably can't explain how a Mazda works nearly as well. So again, it's not that I'm saying everybody else is wrong. This is just something that I've chosen and I understand a little bit better. And I would refer you to the Mazda dealer if you were looking for a Mazda. Is that a fair way to kind of explain the way you see yourself in that role, both of you?
Yeah, just because you love chocolate doesn't mean we should vilify vanilla lovers, right? As Dr. David Hawkins said. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I absolutely love that. So, tell us a little bit about how you knew this book needed to be written.
Yeah, we've seen all the fads come and go, whether it was, the grapefruit diet, the celery juice diet. We've seen, of course, with social media, as Wade alluded to, people attacking others, the carnivores making fun of the vegetarians, the vegetarians attacking people that eat animals. It just goes on. And then people on YouTube doing reaction videos. And then you got fear mongers that tell you that this food's evil. And if you eat kale, you're going to have kidney stones. And if you eat plants, the plants are going to try to kill you. So there was just so much misinformation that we really felt we needed to write this book. And we started over 3 years ago. Literally took us over 3 years to write it. It took us about 6 months to just do the table of content. The table of content was 54 pages in a Google Doc, just because we wanted it to be as thorough as possible. And we actually cut out about 50% of the content from the book. So the book, the original draft, was about double that size. And we just kept editing and pulled out all the supplement information. And that's an additional bonus people can get when they buy the whole Ultimate Nutrition course. But yeah, it just felt like something we needed to do, and we felt uniquely qualified to do it. Maybe Wade, you can talk about why that is.
Well, both Matt and I had a tremendous amount of success as personal trainers and, coached a lot of people ourselves and saw a lot of variants from virtually every age and situation. And we were both successful using very different dietary strategies. And what started out as arguments, what eventually came into discussions. And we realized, our number one passion is to help people. And as experts and advocates in the dietary industry, and I think all dietary experts have to take responsibility for what's happened to the population right now. The average person that diets, it gains back all the weight they lose in 3 to 5 years. The average person starts a diet, has done 6 different diets, eventually all to fail to this component. So in other words, 97% of people are going to succeed. And with social media, they largely fail because of the confusion, because of the diet fad, the charismatic individual that sounds so convincing, but they don't have the background, the information, or the time to thoroughly investigate the components that are individual to them. Also, the emergence of microbiome testing and genetic testing has allowed us to separate the wheat from the chaff. In other words, we can actually determine what everybody says. Well, everybody's different. Yeah, but how they're different is really important. Well, now we can use science to decode the differences for the individual that allows them to get over the generalizations and into the specifics with them. And it's not just the dietary components, because when you start looking at genetics and microbiome, as well as social, emotional, psychological tendencies, cultural, responsibilities or tendencies, then you start to realize why people fail, because almost no one is addressing those. And so Matt might want to walk us through the pyramid of nutritional decisions. We've created a bunch of frameworks inside of the book that allows a person to go through a process of how they would identify the areas that may be missing in their former diet strategies, integrate them so that they can be successful, not just in the short term, but in the long term, so where they can just set the diet and forget about it. They don't have to worry about it anymore. That's where we live. We enjoy it, we love it, and we want to share it with more people.
Yeah, we wanted to give people a framework so that they can literally create the perfect diet for themselves. We didn't want to tell people, here's what you should eat, which pretty much every diet book does. And of course, there's a ton of suggestions on the best probiotic rich food or the best plant-based food if you want protein. So all that's in the book. However, we wanted to give people really a system so that they can shape the ultimate diet for them. And it starts with spiritual and cultural considerations. And of course, not everyone needs to use that, but some people, like Muslims, do Ramadan. Some people consider cows a sacred animal. They don't want to eat those. Whatever people's spiritual beliefs are, we're not here to judge that, tell them that they're wrong. We're here to support them. Now, if that is not important to you, then you move on to the next layer, which is psychological and emotional needs. And we really believe that that's where so many diets fail. You know, people just get on a diet. And of course, everyone knows you need to burn more calories than you consume if you want to lose weight. That's a scientific truth. But psychologically, that's where people go off course. You know, if they have trauma, they use food as a drug and they stress eat. And on some level, we're all stress eaters. We really need to make sure that people process these negative emotions. And we have a whole chapter devoted to that. And then on the psychological motivational side, people need dopamine. They need a system, which we call dopamine loops, that propels them, that drives them, that motivates them constantly. And of course, there's a whole chapter on just the different types of, you know, people respond to different types of discipline or how they comply to their coaches. So all of these unique differences can make a massive difference on how you kind of structure your diet or how you get coached. Then we get into goals, and the book covers in depth the 5 epic goals, starting with weight loss. There's essentially an entire weight loss book in the book. Muscle building, which both Wade and I have been quite successful with. Athletic performance. I actually worked with a few pro athletes in my career. Cognitive performance, and then health and lifespan, meaning we want people to live long and strong. And depending on your goal, that completely shifts your diet, right? If your goal is to lose weight, you need to be in a calorie deficit. If your goal is to build muscle, you need to be in a calorie surplus, just to use those as examples. And after that, you get into calories and macros, which again are dictated by your goals. And most people in the diet world only really focus on calories and macros. And of course, that's critical. But again, we want to give people a holistic view of all the variables so that they're more successful over time. Then, as Wade alluded to, there's a new field called nutrigenomics. So you can do diet DNA tests and see unique differences between your genetics and my genetics and Wade's genetics. And you can start to tweak your diet accordingly. So again, I've been keto for a long time, and I'll give you a really big insight that's come relatively recently, which is I don't have great genetics for saturated fats. So what I've done, I'm still keto, but I've increased my olive oil intake and I've decreased my animal fat intake. Still eat steaks, don't worry, but I've adjusted that because of the nutrigenomic data. And Wade, maybe you can talk about a couple of your examples, because it just highlights that individuality that we talk about.
Yeah, when I did my genetic testing, I found out that I had suboptimal genes for cardiovascular health. In other words, that even if I followed a perfect, athletic diet with, typical macro distribution of animal proteins and fats and, moderate carbohydrates, the likelihood that I would have a cardiac event, my 70s or 80s, but that's a stroke or heart attack, is fairly high, even if I did everything right. So with that, and there's another piece that goes to that. I also have suboptimal genetics on food satiety. So left on my own accord, I will overeat, particularly if I don't have enough protein from a satiety factor. So when I switched into a plant-based diet, of course, the biggest objection to that diet is, where do you get your protein? So I had to supplement by creating a protein supplementation program that adds extra protein into my vegetarian diet. And then I had to add an essential fatty acid from a plant-based source to cover the animal fat sources that I wouldn't be getting. That allows me to stabilize my blood sugar. And then also in the afternoon, I have a massive salad. And what that does is it creates the satiety that protein tends to do for a lot of people. Instead of using protein as a satiety factor, I use fiber. In fact, I have a lot of fiber. Some people call me the fiber king because I have fiber with every meal in order to create that satiety feeling that I feel full. And with that, I've been able to be successful. In fact, when I had my HOMO-IR test, a blood sugar test and insulin response test, the naturopath doctor that gave me the test said, if I looked at this, I would think that you were on a ketogenic diet. Your blood sugar is so, the stabilization factor. So it was remarkable how you could take a high carbohydrate diet that's a plant-based diet, but have a really good profile if you're doing these adjuncts. And that's, one of the challenges that is projected, and rightly so, by a lot of advocates of other diets about the plant-based diet. If you're not doing those things, it's quite likely that people would fall into those traps. And so we help people avoid those traps with the diet that works for them. And then, of course, I think Matt will probably take the next step, where this is where the rubber hits the road for a lot of people, and that's where you get into the gut biome. We've actually created a complete suite of digestive health products that addresses the unique dietary needs of virtually all of the major diets. Matt, you want to add to what we've been doing there and the importance of the gut biome and all the genes that are present in the gut?
Yeah, Wade and I really found common ground on our diets by focusing on using different supplements to optimize our digestive capabilities. We built Mastizymes, which is still our second best-selling product, 2005. We've continued to improve it. We just released the latest version. It blows every other enzyme out of the water. And we know that because we have a lab and we test not just our products, but other people's. And as Wade said, we built a complete suite of digestive solutions, including different types of enzymes, including K-Pax, which is built for ketogenic diets, and then different types of probiotic blends, including things like microbiome breakthrough, which helps rebuild your intestinal tract. That actually builds biofilm, healthy biofilm. And then another product called P3OM, which is a protein digesting probiotic, which is extremely rare, survives all the stomach acids and just cleans house and kills a lot of the bad guys. So gut biome is a huge deal. And of course, a lot of people have leaky gut. And when you have leaky gut and you consume protein, the undigested protein can get into your bloodstream and create inflammatory responses. For a long time, a few years ago, I thought A1 protein, which is about 80% of the dairy protein out there, was evil because I would eat it and get an inflammatory response. What I didn't understand was I had leaky gut. So when I fixed my leaky gut, now I can have ice cream if I want and not have any inflammatory response. So the A1 protein wasn't the problem. It was my leaky gut. And the gut's incredibly dynamic. Like probiotics have about a 48-hour lifespan. So the good news is you can transform your gut health very quickly. And one of the recommendations in the book is that everybody should eat more fermented food. It's a really easy addition, whether you're adding sauerkraut to a salad or you're adding a bit of sauerkraut or natto to your keto, your steak meals, whatever it is. Eating more fermented food is a great health tip for everyone. And of course, using really good probiotics is another one. Then we have supplements. And of course, we are founders of a supplement company. And supplements do two major things. One, they help us eliminate deficiencies. And doing blood work or hair analysis is a great way to identify these deficiencies. And then you create a supplement strategy to fix those. So for an example, recently, I discovered I had bad genetics for selenium, bad genetics for zinc. And then I did a hair analysis test, and guess what? I'm deficient in both of those. So now I've adjusted my supplement program to help get me to the optimal zone. And we're big believers in you want to push your nutrients until you get to an optimal level. The RDA is like the basic minimal amount that you would need. Now, if you're working out, if you live in a hot climate like I do in Panama, if you do a lot of saunas, we all sweat a lot of minerals. So you need to replace those. And probably the mineral that people are the most deficient in, or the furthest away from optimal, is magnesium. Wade and I both burnt out in a big way due to magnesium deficiency. And when we started supplementing and loading our bodies up with magnesium, it was absolutely transformative. Within 7 weeks, we went from completely frazzled to just zen and relaxed. And our product, Magnesium Breakthrough, has been our best-selling product for the last few years. And just to wrap up the pyramid, then you have food allergies and sensitivities, which is a very unique personal thing. Some people can't eat nightshades. Some people get, again, immune responses to different types of foods. And the good news is there's a lot of good tests like Cyrex, which helps reveal whether or not you should avoid certain foods. And last but not least is really your lifestyle. You want to create a nutritional lifestyle that you enjoy. If you're a foodie like I am, and you like going to nice restaurants, you travel a lot, you like going to having new food experiences, then you want to build and optimize your nutritional strategy so that you can do that. So whatever it is, whatever your ultimate lifestyle is, you want to make sure that you tweak the variables so that it works and you don't feel deprived. No one will thrive long-term or survive long-term if they're feeling deprived for a long period of time.
Yeah. Wow. And you guys illustrate that so well in the book. Excuse me, the illustration you had that explains what you explained earlier, where if you're calorie depleting for too long, it shows what will happen with weight regain over time. And I think that's so important for people to understand. You guys are giving me so many awesome softballs to ask great questions. These are amazing. What a cool way to think about the structure of a diet on so many different levels. We kind of forget that it isn't just numbers or calories. It's what your family likes. It's what your heritage is. It's where you came from, how many generations are living in the same area. It's seasons. There's so many different things to it. And Wade, I thought it was really interesting what you were saying, that you can eat a primarily carbohydrate-based, plant-based diet. And I've heard you say this in the past too, that you can measure ketones and you can be expressing some ketones that people are trying to get to on a ketogenic diet. I kind of like the way that Dr. Dave Champion sets this up in his book called Body Science, where he calls them hemispheres, and he says one hemisphere is ketosis, and you run the body in a state of ketosis, and the other hemisphere would be glucosis, where you're running the body through glucose. Would it be, I like to think of it that way, would it be fair to say, regardless of what you do to your diet, fasting, whatever, there's a million different things that people can do, would the goal be in a large part to mostly be in some sort of state of ketosis, not only for weight control, but also for long-term health and mental health and all those things? Is that something you think about?
Yeah, Matt and I have had a lot of conversations around this, and there's a couple of camps out there. And it's your primary fuel source. Is it a glucose-based component or is it a fat-based source? I was listening to an episode, I forget the guy's name. He's kind of like the amino acid king. He was on Gabriel Lyons recently, kind of breaking this down. And the reality is you can be successful on either way. I think in the ultimate expression, you want to have the capability to thrive on both. So if you stay exclusively in a high carbohydrate diet, then your ability to metabolize fats somewhat becomes impaired. Conversely, it's the other way around for people who are on keto all the time, their ability to use carbohydrates. I'm a ascriber to the dual fuel strategy. And so I do regular fasting. That would put me more in a ketogenic type of state where ketones are going. And I can go right from high carbohydrates into a 1, 2, 3 day fast with no problem. It's easy transition for me. Conversely, I can drop my fats to almost nothing and still do very well. Although typically I have to increase my activity level around that. So, and I stagger my carbohydrates with protein, because you want to slow the delivery of the carbohydrate spike. So and I think a lot of studies are set to fail in the beginning. Like if I'm just taking a big smash of glucose, that's not really how I eat. I don't sit there and chug 50 or 100 grams of glucose and expect that something good is going to come out of that. I would stack my carbohydrates with some protein so that that insulin spike is going to deliver amino acids to my body, and the net response is going to not be as spiky per se from an insulin level. And I think where the common ground is if you're looking to stabilize your mental function and body fat burning, you want to be able to find a way to keep a steady flow in a calorie deficit. So you can do that with carbohydrates and proteins and low fat. You can do that with high fat, moderate protein, and low carbohydrates. And that's just simply because of the calorie cycle. If you're taking fats, right, you need less meals because of the density of fats. If you're eating carbohydrates and protein, you'll probably need more. So the bodybuilding world leans on that side, where maybe the cognitive performance folks lead more to the ketogenic side because they're busy entrepreneurs and they like the long slow burn of fat burning, and some endurance athletes are that way as well. So this comes down to your goals, where you are. Maybe Matt, you want to make a couple of comments on that as well from your perspective.
Yeah, I think so. Wade hit a really key point. So our glycolytic pathways, our glucose burning pathways, and our lipolytic pathways, which is our ability to metabolize fatty acids and use them or metabolize ketones, is very dynamic. And let's start with somebody starting a ketogenic diet, somebody who's never done keto. They've been eating carbs since they're a baby, and they decide, okay, I'm going to try a ketogenic diet. Well, we all know that the first 2 weeks they go through the keto flu. What is that? That is an inability to effectively break down fats, turn them into ketones, and utilize the ketones. Now, there's some great hacks for that. You can use ketone salts or drink ketone esters, and that'll completely eliminate those.
Lipolytic enzymes, don't forget those, because that was a big game changer for me.
Yeah, so lipolytic enzymes as well. So again, it's very dynamic. So that's the first level of fat adaptation. It takes about 2 weeks. The next fat adaptation phase, about 3 months. And I typically recommend, go pure keto, really cut your carbs, go below 30 grams, 20 grams, really force your body to learn how to burn fuel, how to burn fat for fuel. After that, you can start doing carbohydrate cycling, which I've been doing since I'm 16. So again, the anabolic diet by Dr. Morty Pasquale's strategy was go keto 5-6 days and do a carbohydrate refeed for 1 or 2 days, which in my opinion has a lot of benefits. You get, of course, a massive insulin response. Your insulin sensitivity is quite high because you've avoided carbohydrates for 5-6 days. And it's quite anabolic. I mean, if you eat a calorie surplus, go do legs, go train back on the weekend while you're eating carbs, you're on fire. And you're also on fire for Monday, Tuesday, and typically by Wednesday, you burn through the carbohydrate, the glycogen reserves. But after about a year, you get into really kind of that fourth and final phase of fat adaptation. And I did an experiment a few years ago. It wasn't really an experiment. It was kind of a happy accident. We were building our blood sugar breakthrough product, and I had to eat 250 grams of carbs a day for 2 weeks. I was just eating the same thing every day, tracking my blood sugar response, tracking my ketones, and testing different prototypes. And I was still in ketosis. 2 weeks later, eating 250 grams of carbs a day, I was 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So I am always in ketosis at this point. I can eat carbs, it doesn't matter. Even when I would eat 500-600 grams of carbs on a Saturday, Sunday on a refeed, I'm still in ketosis. I'm still in ketosis on Monday. So, that's the cool thing. Once you're truly fat adapted, your body is just always burning ketones, making ketones, burning ketones. So I think there's a lot of advantages to that. But as Wade alluded to, if you're a power athlete, and there were some interesting experiments done where they depleted people and forced them to go on a ketogenic diet. And then they got them to get back on carbs before their event, and they could not match their original power. So it just showed that the glycolytic pathways had gotten a lot weaker, and who knows how long it would take. They didn't continue the study to figure that out. But again, carb burning pathways and fat burning pathways are really dynamic. And I'm a big believer in cyclical ketogenic diets for those reasons.
Oh, that's great. So well explained. And as I understand it, Matt, when you do your refeed days, you can pretty much eat anything, correct? Like you can have, if you want like a pizza, you can do that. Wade, maybe you're a little bit more like me. Like if I would not feel good if I did that. If I had a refeed day of sugar especially, but really anything that goes vastly off my diet, my anxiety would go crazy. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I don't think I've got the ability to kind of moderate the way that Matt does. And you're kind of in that same camp. Is that right?
No, actually. So first we got to give credit to Scott Abel. Scott Abel has really, his book, The Slingshot Diet, and his books on metabolism stuff. He was my bodybuilding coach for many years and allowed me to kind of hit that high level of success. I wouldn't have done it without him. And he became famous for being shredded to the bone. And then on a given day, he'd go off and eat 10,000 calories. And Chris Aceto, the famous nutritionist, followed him around one day at muscle camp because he couldn't believe that he could be that shredded. That was back in the 80s. Now, over the years, Scott refined that process. And being one of his students for many years, there is key elements to doing a proper refeed. Not all foods are going to work for you. Most people will do better starting with fats and proteins early on to create a layer to slow the glucose train down if you're really going into like the as I call it, the forbidden food section. And then there's another piece that you got to address, and that is to eliminate, and we talk about this in the book, that there is no evil foods. And I'll give you a scenario to prove this out. If a person is starving for 2 weeks and there's nothing to eat but McDonald's, would it be appropriate to give them McDonald's or let them starve to death? Of course, you give them McDonald's, right? Now, I don't think there's anybody that would call McDonald's a high performance meal, but the reality is there is enough calories to support life within it. So we have to give the devil its due. These hyperpalatable, sugary tasting foods are successful in the world because they hit all of our brain receptors that create a drug-like response. Matt and I went to a Sidecar donut one day. They were advocating. I'm not a big donut guy. Okay. I'm just not. He's like, you got to come to Sidecar. So him and his friends, they bugged me and bugged me. I went to Sidecar donut. And I had the hot donuts coming over, the fat, the sugar, the heat, everything. I thought I was high on heroin or something. I ate the first one and I'm like, give me another one of these things, man. I'm like, I'm gone, right? And the reality is the euphoria of eating is legitimate. Now, the key is to not become an addict to that at the expense of your health. So how do you do that? You use strategic refeeds to overcome the negative connotations of evil foods. You pick the foods that are right for you and your body. So, for example, maybe some people have a gluten sensitivity. Okay, loading up on gluten on a on a refeed day is not a good idea for them. They can use other foods. Maybe they have they're not very tolerant to fats, so they can't have too much fat in their diet because that'll make them feel a little bit off. So the strategy of creating an optimal refeed that pushes the metabolism up, because what is the goal of the refeed? The goal of the refeed is to get as much calories to push the metabolism and override the starvation mechanisms that make long-term dieting very difficult to sustain. And so Scott figured out how to do that to avoid the reset in being in a calorie deficit for, say, 5 or 6 days of the week. You have one spike day, the body goes, okay, I'm safe. I don't have to downregulate the metabolism. That way you can keep, eating at a high satiety level and feeling good about your diet all week long. Plus, you get away from the evil food syndrome where now you start saying, I'm a sinner. I went off my diet. I'm not really a keto guy, or I broke out of the carnivore program. I ate some carbohydrates and I want to flagellate myself and go through 18 hours of YouTube videos saying, oh my God, did I commit a cardinal sin or whatever? Because there's so much emotional guilt and baggage around body image, around food. And a big part of the book is how we can help people identify those things, because if you believe something to be bad or evil and you eat that, you take that on and create a trauma in the body that takes you away from your confidence of who you are and stuff. And what we're here to do is to help you unwind that. Maybe, Matt, you want to talk about some of the emotional techniques that we go in here to kind of undo the trauma we've created from following all these different dietary strategies and maybe failing or struggling with them.
No, I think it's such a key point, because so many people are literally stressed out about everything. Especially, again, the more you dive into nutritional content on social media, the more stressed out you're going to be. And one of the best tools for this is EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. I am a certified practitioner, very good friends with Dawson Church, who's one of the top researchers in the space. If you go to EFTuniverse.com, you can read all kinds of research that's been done. And they did do research with people on a diet using EFT, and they were far more successful, not just short-term, but long-term. So when you have a food craving, for an example, which happens to all of us, you can tab that away within like 5-10 minutes max. And it's really easy to learn. If you want to learn how to tap, go to YouTube, learn the 9 gamut points, and it works. Like, I tap on a frequent basis, not just for food things, but any sort of emotional distress, any sort of discomfort I'm feeling in my body, I will tab that away. So it's been one of my top tools, and I can't recommend it strongly enough. Another big one is neurofeedback. Wade and I have spent weeks of our lives doing neurofeedback. We're about to do another round in about 2 weeks. And when you combine neurofeedback with emotional clearing work, whether it's forgiveness or other tools, it's incredibly effective. And back to, that's already out of date. Something that's been interesting that's happened to me in the last year and a half or so is I don't do the crazy refeeds anymore. For a while, I was doing like 8,000 calorie day refeeds. I haven't done one of those in probably about a year and a half. So, and it's not like I decided I didn't want to do them. I just kind of lost that impulsive drive to do them. Don't get me wrong. I usually still have like a burger a week. I'll eat sushi once a week, but maybe it's a 2,500 calorie day, 3,000 calorie day. But in terms of, if you ever want to have an epic feast and not feel any digestive distress, that's where Masszymes comes in. I mean, you take 10 capsules of Masszymes and you can go eat 3,000-4,000 calories and feel good. So that's the power of Masszymes.
Wow. And a quick question on that product, with any enzymes, with anything we take for digestive health, is that something that we want to be taking for the rest of our lives, or is it something you take to repair damage that's already been caused, and then eventually you can kind of wean off of it?
Well, here's a big flashing sign. So if you look at any nutrition book, they'll give a couple of paragraphs on enzymes in their role. Basically, they run everything from thinking to blinking. There's 25,000 different enzymes. Now, every species on the planet eats its food in a raw state, whether they're carnivores, omnivores, or herbivores. And when they consume the food, they get the protein, carbs, fats, fiber, whatever. But the bacteria that's commensurate with that food is present, as well as the enzymatic activity. Now, humans have figured out how to cook and pasteurize their food. They irradiate it when it's been transported through states and stuff like that. So virtually all of the food that humans are consuming is enzymatically efficient. So nature designed us to be consuming enzymes with our food that are present in it, but humans aren't doing this. Now, going back to Dr. Edward Howe's research on food enzymes for health and longevity, he did studies with rats, cats, horses, dogs, you name it. And the ones he was supplementing with exogenous enzymes lived longer than the ones that didn't, across the board. Also, if you go back to Pottinger's cat studies, which were replicated through all these species with Dr. Howe, was that when they fed animals an enzymatically deficient diet, by the 3rd generation, those animals exhibited social behavior that was not similar to what they were, their species. They developed the inability to procreate, and they developed a host of genetic diseases that their ancestors didn't have. And he predicted this would happen about this time, back in the 40s and 50s, as we went through 3 generations, because of the proliferation of the industrial food complex. Now, I'm not here to condemn all the advantages of cooking and pasteurization and irradiating and why they do that, and shelf life and the convenience that we have in the modern world. But a lot of people say, well, if you take enzymes all the time, you'll stop your body from producing enzymes. Nothing could be further from the truth. That is a projection. And it's certainly not clear to them to understand that we're naturally supposed to consume them. If we're not providing them, we don't produce enough enzymes. So if you took humans' cadavers, the pancreas is about 4 times larger per body weight than any other species. And with the rise of things like type 2 diabetes, is directly proportionate to our inability to digest, absorb, and utilize the food that we're getting that's leaking into the system. We're using enzyme or insulin or hormones to manage a suboptimal digestive system. So that's why we developed a complete suite of digestive health products based on the different types of diet. We have Vegzymes, we have Capex, we have Masszymes, which is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of enzymes. All of these particular ones, so that we get the enzymes that we're not getting present, that are supposed to be present. And we do it in what I call industrial strength levels. So when you're talking enzymes, there's food enzymes, and that's what you would find in a food. There is animal enzymes, which are extracts from animals, which work in a very narrow pH range. And then there's what's called systemic enzymes. Those are enzymes that you don't use for digestion. Something like nattokinase or something you take on an empty stomach, or serrapeptase or something like that have particular processes. And then there's cultured enzymes. And what we use is cultured enzymes. That are enzymes that are grown on very specific mediums that can be 100 to 1,000 times more powerful than you would find in a regular, a plant-based enzymes. So all enzymes aren't created equal. All enzyme formulations aren't created equal. And we have a research facility, the International Birch University, who has actually demonstrated how effective our enzymatic products are in comparison to everything else on the market. So when you're trying an enzyme, you have to realize most people don't know what they do. They don't know that we're supposed to have them, and they haven't had a cultured enzyme that can really make a difference. And, we've been able to crack the code on that and provide these solutions to people who are really suffering from digestive issues, not their fault, because of the modern world.
Yeah. Just to give you some data, I just want to wrap up Wade's story there. So in our lab, we use a test called InfoGest. It's considered the gold standard for laboratory tests to simulate the digestive system. So we feed it protein, whey, casein. We just did some animal products. And we measure the amount of amino acids that's been broken down from the protein. The difference between eating food with or without Masszymes is 1,200%, meaning you will break down 1,200% more protein, get 1,200% more amino acids with Masszymes than without. That is the InfoGest data. And again, everybody who's in our world talks about protein. It's not protein that we want. Undigested protein is incredibly inflammatory. What we want is amino acids. And that's the power of proteolytic enzymes, is you're going to break those down, feed your body amino acids, and then get all the health benefits from it.
Very well explained. I love that. And so for some people, they might be able to kind of taper down off of them. For other people, depending on how much damage they're doing or what diet they're choosing, they may need to stay on something like that forever.
As we get older, our digestive enzymes that we produce internally and our hydrochloric acid gets lower and lower. And one of the common advice for people as they get older is increase your protein intake. And why is that? It's because your ability to break down the protein is getting weaker and weaker. So they need to eat more and more to try to get the appropriate amount of amino acids. Our suggestion is you don't need to eat more and more protein. You need to use enzymes and just make sure you're getting enough protein. That's it.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for explaining that and taking that excursion. I love that. One thing I do want to bring up about the book that I absolutely love, you've already alluded to it as well, is you bring up several different diets, really popular ones that you guys can get behind, regardless, as long as they're done correctly and people are paying attention to a few things. And again, you alluded to this, but I love it. You say these are the pros of this diet. These are also the cons of this diet. And I'm one that, again, I like a carnivore diet. It's been working for me, but I realize there's some very significant cons that comes along with that. And not the least is like even like social things, or like, at the time of this recording, Thanksgiving's coming up, and like you have to kind of deal with those types of things if you're going to try to eat in a certain way. So can you explain why it was so important for you to talk about not only the pros and why such and such diet is great, but also the things you need to look out for and what things could be cons?
Yeah. That's where we talk about the psychological piece of the pros and cons.
Well, I can relate to a carnivore diet, which is an extreme form of diet, because I was on a completely raw food diet. I think I'm the only bodybuilding champion in the world that was on a raw food diet. And you alluded to a complete. I remember when it really hit me. I went to a raw food festival. This skinny waif-like character came up to me with kind of glazed eyes and said to me, "What percentage of raw are you?" Now, I knew if I didn't say 100%, somehow they might have taken me out and burned me at the stake or something. I knew this was going to be bad. And this is what I became clear of: dietary cults, charismatic individuals that produced extraordinary results from some sort of restrictive or extreme diet that then become advocated and galvanized into the principles of that dietary religion. And you are either one of the faithful followers or you're a dietary heathen to be excluded and attacked at all causes, because it's dealing with the amygdala center. And subconsciously, we're always trying to calibrate and find safety within a tribe. Now, I think there's a lot of advantages to being part of a dietary tribe and to be able to be around people that are following that process. And oftentimes, the more extreme your physical challenge is, the more extreme you need to be in the short term, especially, and maybe even the medium term, before you can come back to kind of the center. A great example of that is Dr. Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela Peterson, who had severe genetic inflammatory conditions, and they are on a complete carnivore diet. Now, they say, we're not advocating this for everybody. In fact, the limitations are legit, but based on their genetic conditions, that's the right diet for them. Now, that's one of the few balanced perspectives I've seen coming from people on that. In fact, Jordan says he doesn't even like to comment about it because of all of the corollary problems. So recognizing that as humans, psychologically, we are attracted to a dietary strategy or a tribe. And why we provide it both the pros and cons is to allow people to choose the diet strategy they want, follow the guru or the advocate they like, being part of that social group, but also balance that with some legitimate science to recognize where you could potentially go wrong on that diet. Matt and I have had our own experiences about the limitations of our dietary strategy. We had to figure these things out the hard way. And the book provides a framework as well as things to check and how to check yourself to find out how to alleviate the liabilities of any diet, especially as you get more into the extreme side of the equation.
One person's pro is another person's con. So again, I think going through, some people love steaks. If you're a steak lover, then a carnivore diet is probably awesome. If you're not a meat lover, then maybe a plant-based diet is more appealing. So I think that's another big part of the psychological side of it.
Well, and the psychological side of things, the way you guys are explaining this, it's totally reframing things. And I think it's a really great way to look at things. Like the way you explained a refeed and how that's changed and evolved for you over time. You flip the kind of script. It's not cheating on your diet. It's part of what you eat. It's just what you do on one day, and you give it some kind of boundaries. That's a totally different reframe of the mindset that I think will really help a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter kind of on advanced calorie cycling and doing reverse cycling and all kinds of things in the book I think are really cutting edge stuff that not a lot of people know about, including strategies to recomp. I was able to recomp 20 pounds over 4 years. So meaning my body weight stayed the same, but I lost about 20 pounds of body fat, added 20 pounds of lean muscle mass a few years ago. And was using all of these strategies. So, one great tip is, look at your calories from a weekly perspective. As soon as you do that, it opens up a whole new playbook. So for an example, you can be in a calorie surplus for 2 days on the weekend, go eat some carbs, go eat whatever you want, and you're going to be really anabolic. Calorie surplus is anabolic. So if you go train hard on those days, go do squats, go do deadlifts, go do train back, or go lift weights, right? You're going to add lean muscle mass, assuming you're training properly, et cetera. And then later in the week, you can be in a deficit. You can fast for an entire day, for an example, which will cut your weekly calories down significantly. And your net calorie intake from a weekly perspective could be at maintenance. So if your weekly calories are at maintenance, you're not going to gain body fat. You might gain a little bit of body fat on Saturday, Sunday, but then you're going to lose it on that fasting day. So again, we're big proponents of looking at your calories from a weekly perspective. And again, it really opens up an entire new playbook.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. I'm really enjoying the book, and clearly my social media can tell that I'm enjoying the book and loving reading it. And so ads are popping up for the book, but it's not just the book you guys have on offer. There's all kinds of different resources that I was really unaware of. Can you explain, like, when people sign up or buy the book, what other things come with it?
Yeah, we spent a week in the Hollywood Hills, literally filming a video version of the course. We had 4 video editors just make it incredibly visually engaging. So for people that don't want to read the book, and we actually don't recommend you read the book cover to cover unless you're a true nutrition nerd like we are. For most people, just jump to the chapter that's grabbing your interest, or that, that's currently your goal, like weight loss, etc. So we had the video version. We have 3 cookbooks, including a carnivore cookbook, a plant-based cookbook, a paleo cookbook. You get those for free. As I mentioned earlier, the original draft was double the size of the book. So we took all of the supplement information, which is over 200 pages. And again, it's not a promotional piece for our supplements at all. It's covering every type of supplement. And that's an additional book that you get. Plus, for the super nerds, we've got you covered. We have 875 scientific references in the book. So what we did is we created a summary of every single scientific reference in the book, and then put that in a PDF. So if you really, really want to dive deep, you can. So again, we kind of have something for everyone, and every people can get that at ultimatenutritionsystem.com/Casey Ruff and get 10% off.
That is awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. I thought you guys might be coming up with a code. That's fantastic for our listeners. And what an amazing resource to be able to offer. And I love that advice in this book. I kind of noticed that as well. Like, I am a nutrition nerd. I always love learning and unlearning all kinds of stuff in the nutrition world. And so I do enjoy reading it from the first to the end. But yeah, anybody could just jump right in and to whatever topic interested them and read as deep as they like. And like I said earlier, like the diagrams you guys use, the pictures you use are all absolutely wonderful and really easy to understand. Everything's really well explained. This has been an awesome conversation, Matt and Wade. Where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work? And if you don't mind, one more time, that code so people can grab that.
Yeah, it's at ultimatenutritionsystem.com/Casey Ruff. And the code is Ruff10. And yeah, BIOptimizers, so BIOptimizers.com is our site. You can check out our digestive suite of products, and you can use Ruff10, save 10% on any product. And again, for anybody who's a ketogenic guy, definitely try Capex. It's an incredible ketogenic aid. You take, let's say, 4 capsules in the morning, you're going to get an 8-hour energy boost. And Wade, you got some final inspiring words for us?
Yeah, I think there are so many people that have lost hope. They've struggled, they're confused, and they've given up. And the goal of this book is to remind people that, they have 10,000 generations of success locked within their genetics. And we provide the keys to unlock those successful components that people overcome all these challenges, and to set yourself up for success, not just for you, but the generations to come, your kids, your grandkids, and way beyond whatever. Your decisions today echo throughout time. And so it's really important to understand that right now, as humans, we are facing challenges that we have never faced before in regards to the right diet, dietary selection, the plethora of options, chemicals, strategies, information are overwhelming people to the point that of apathy where they give up. And what we've provided is a systematic way to decode the information, to be able to take the action that you need with full confidence, both now and in the future, and really lock in the diet that's right for you, the individual, for the long term. And here's the benefit. You'll never have to worry about your diet again. You'll never be confused. You'll never feel guilty. You will never be overwhelmed by suboptimal psychological or emotional states because you got conditioned by a dietary cultist that you're somewhat worthy or you're not good enough or that whatever that situation might be. Unlocking super health through the proper nutrition and programs that will allow you to succeed is so critical for every single facet of your life. Virtually everything gets better in your life when you are fit, when you are healthy, and that you have a defense mechanism for all the BS that's coming at you on a day-to-day basis. That's our hope for the listener. And if you are in the nutrition industry, this is a book that you will definitely want on your shelf as a reference guide for years to come. It encompasses everything, and it provides you frameworks in areas that maybe you don't have experience that may be of value to you or the people that you serve in your life.
Okay, that's a pretty good way to end the podcast. That was basically like the Braveheart speech for nutrition nerds like Matt and I. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
We've got good Braveheart speeches. Yeah.
Wow. I'm like super inspired to run out on the battlefield right now. Wade and Matt, thank you guys both so very much for all of your work and for making such a comprehensive guide for people. It's absolutely wonderful. Your work with supplements is wonderful as well. I know tons of people who take them and absolutely love them. So thank you so very much for everything you do. And thank you for taking time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you both.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.